What's up, y'all? My name is T. Shaw, and this is Brewin Black Podcast, where the contents we serve you is authentic, vulnerable, and relatable. That means we serve you with no cream and no sugar.
I guess I like my coffee black.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Scholar P, pronouns he, him, his.
And it's your boy T. Shaw, pronouns he, him, his.
And this is Brewin Black, giving you the latest in black news and entertainment for our intellectuals, our millennials, and those who like their podcasts like we like our news. Black. T, how you feeling today, bro?
Man, it is Black History Month.
Yeah.
So, Merry Black History Month to all my black people.
Hey.
You know, we get the shortest month, but February is also the greatest month. It is also my birthday weekend.
Come on now.
Or week, you know. So I'm hyped about that. I'm really hyped to get into the show. I'm hyped at all of the amazing feedback we've gotten about our last episode. Again, shout out to the network studios. We in here.
Yeah,
we looking good. The lights shining. We feeling good. So yeah, bro, like it's just, I think this week is going to be amazing. My birthday is in 2 days.
Come on now.
I'm feeling loved. I'm feeling loved. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, but we're not through with you yet, bro. First of all, check out this jacket. Like, flash that for the people, man. Was that? Did you get that from somewhere? Did you make it? Like, what's up?
You know, I, as an activist and an organizer in undergrad, for sure, I definitely wanted to like have my own type of brand. And yeah, this jacket I kind of put together based on the different pins and buttons I've collected. So, you know, I gotta have a free. Got some pins. I got the free Angela button. I hope y'all zoom in on that. So yeah, man, I just feel like it puts me in the zone, and it's Black History Month, so I'm like, I gotta show out for the people.
That's it, man. That's it. Well, I also got to say that Black History Month is every day for us. You know what I'm saying? That's the great thing about Brewin Black. Like, we don't stop talking about blackness regardless. So we're always going to celebrate it. But we appreciate everything that's been happening and all the love that black people have been receiving during this particular month. T, what are your birthday plans, bro?
You know, I am gonna leave it up to my girlfriend. Shout out to Alex. And Jew. I'm not quite sure, but it seems like there are some plans. We're definitely going to dinner on my birthday, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, you know, I've never been a super big person about my birthday. I want to get more into it. But I just love that I have people in my life that love me enough to make it special for me.
Touche. Well, look, man, I'm doing really good. Life is moving. Not too many crazy updates. For everyone who's in LA, go to LACMA. They have a Black American Portraits Museum, which is super, super dope. Me and some of the students in my program went, so definitely check them out. But honestly, today is going to be a great show. We got a lot of deep topics to get into today. People are acting up, T. People are acting up.
They always acting a fool.
You know, so before we get started, we want to do something called our espresso shots, right? And for those of you who don't know, our espresso shots are quick news updates that we give you all with some quick, hot takes and commentary on them, right? So one of the first things that has happened since we started recording in the studio was Rihanna and A$AP Rocky.
Ooh.
My God, A$AP Rocky, he did it. He did it. You know what I'm saying?
Won.
He's a fucking problem. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Shout out to Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. They seem to be super, super happy. They seem to really be in bliss. And I haven't heard no drama, no craziness about them. They really just seem to be in love. And I'm very glad that another black child will enter this world with a loving and supporting system around them, right? Any thoughts that you have around A$AP Rocky and Rihanna?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy for him. I know that A$AP has had more of a problematic past. He said colorist things. I know that he's had some problems, but I think that everybody can be reformed. I hope that they're going to be good. I hope that they don't end up like Kim Ye or Travis Scott and the other Kardashian girl, whatever her name is. And I hope that this can be just a beautiful black relationship that we don't really have to hear about. I hope it's like LeBron and Savannah, you know what I mean? Just power couples doing their thing. And Rihanna's a billionaire, but that's one that I might rock with. You know what I mean? She does a lot with her platform. And I think that Yeah, I'm just happy for them in general.
No, for real. And y'all leave Drake alone. Leave Drake alone, man. He might have done some things and, might not have had the best relationship with Rihanna, but, let people live because this moment is not about Drake.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Quit asking Rihanna for her album.
Yep.
This woman is living her best life. If we get it in some time in the future, that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't be pressing her for it. Some people were actually getting down on Rihanna and A$AP Rocky about this pregnancy, this, that, and the third. But allow people to live. Both of them have entertained us more than enough, especially Rihanna.
Absolutely.
So whatever comes from this in the future, Rihanna, you've done more than enough for the community. And we say thank you. And we want you to enjoy this time and ride up into the sunset if that's what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? But what are some other special shots, man?
Yeah, so we also just want to acknowledge and say rest in peace to Amir Locke.
Yeah.
He was a young man killed in a no-knock raid in St. Paul / Minneapolis. So we know that's where George Floyd was also killed. And we know that there has been problems with their police department. They talked about defunding it. And these conversations are renewed, and there are students walking out. There are people protesting in the streets, just like in 2020. So I want y'all to know that though, what's his name? Chauvin has been found guilty and that he is in prison. It has not changed. It has not truly reformed the police department, and people still are losing their lives. And I think it's also interesting that the Second Amendment never really applies to Black people. We saw that with the Black Panthers, and I think that thought is renewed when seeing Amir Locke killed maybe about 5 to 6 seconds into the police entering that apartment. And I think that makes me disheartened because I know if it's the middle of the night and if I'm sleeping on the couch and I got something to protect me and that it is registered to me, it's licensed to me, I've taken classes, I've been trained for it, that none of that matters in that split second. So I just hope that there's some accountability, and I hope that we, again, can renew these conversations about what defunding the police looks like and when that money is defunded. Again, we talked about it. It's like when you defund the police, you're refunding the community.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in renewing those conversations and seeing where that can go.
No, absolutely. And I think that for people to still be dying in this manner, or to be getting murdered in this manner, right? It shows that from a collective perspective, there's not enough fear. There's not enough hesitation. There's not enough of a moment where you're like, oh, wait. Do I really want to be another cop that has contributed to the loss of Black life, right? And so for these types of things to still be going on, this is why Black people, us as a people, continue to be outraged, right? And so I appreciate you just bringing that to light. Rest in peace to Amir Locke. And, the struggle continues. Chauvin was he was step one. He was one drop in the Pacific Ocean. And that's what we, need y'all to remember, right? So with that being said, we are going to go into something called our light roast. So for those of you who don't know, our light roast is when we critique someone or something in society, and we try to give them some constructive criticism, but sometimes it doesn't work. This time we are going to do sort of 2 light roasts in a sense. We're going to sort of see how that goes.
Compare and contrast.
Yeah, something like that. So the first one is Whoopi Goldberg, right? So she was on The View, and I'm going to let T give y'all even more context, but she was saying that the Holocaust was not necessarily about race. It was more about inhumanity, right?
Man's inhumanity to man.
Yes. And so she was, disciplined. She was suspended for 2 weeks, I believe. And it's an interesting conversation. And we're going to sort of jump into it because I don't know if it's as simple as, oh, she said that she was just blatantly wrong. Oh, she should be suspended. She's a horrible person. Throw her to the wolves, right? So, T, what are some of your initial thoughts about this?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's kind of a callback to last week's episode, right? So thinking about how school districts are trying to ban conversations in class And in this specific example, the Tennessee School Board they banned Mouse, which is a graphic novel that discusses the Holocaust. And in that discussion and that conversation on The View, Whoopi Goldberg had made the claim, just like we had said, that the Holocaust wasn't about race. It was a white-on-white crime incident, and instead that it was more about man's inhumanity to man, right? And I think that where Whoopi really went wrong is that she didn't acknowledge that racism did play a role in what happened with the Nazis, right? Like the Nazis' ideology was based off of racism. And Jews at that time weren't only defined by their religion, but Hitler racialized them. They made them, they looked at their lineage. So if your grandparent was Jewish, then that made you Jewish. And I think that reminds us that race is a social construct. Race is a politically constructed thing. And I think for Whoopi, she understands that Jewish people have been assimilated into American white society. When we are walking on the street, we cannot tell who's Jewish, right? And again, it's because it's not really an ethnicity per se. It's more of it's a religion and it's a historical thing. But I do, looking into it, I really wanted to understand like why Jewish people have been persecuted, right? And I realized historically they've been persecuted by Christians. And if you go back into the Bible, it's because they see Jewish people as the reason that Jesus was killed. So historically, like in Europe itself, and I found this out, I remember having a class with Dr. Kelly, Robin D.G. Kelly, right? And he talks about how racialization is just a process in which that has always existed in European like systems. Is a process of othering. I think that's the best way to think about it. You can make anybody an other. They can say anybody that wore glasses, right? Like other. You got to get out. We don't want no blind people in our society, right? If you have brown eyes or if you have blue eyes, you can always racialize somebody based off of something. You can make somebody the other and say that whatever you do or however you exist is not right and you need to get out. And that has been a process that's been used to colonize people, enslave people, to steal land. So this has been happening over time. And I think that historical piece was what was missing from Whoopi. And I think that's kind of why she has been getting a lot of like flack. But I don't know if it was her misspeaking and not really understanding. I almost don't even want to call it an ignorance. It's just because the ignorance feels a little too harsh. It's just like, because she's right. Like from her context, like Jewish people seem to be white in the United States. But I think when you're talking about this and knowing that it happened in Germany, Europe, the continent of Europe has a whole history that she was not able to speak on in that 30 seconds to 2 minute clip.
And I think that when we think about Jews, the same strategies to racialize Jews that was happening in Europe, like some of those same practices are used to racialize other minorities in the United States, right? Because it wasn't just Jewish people started getting killed and brutalized. It was a slow build up to the process, right? And it was like all these different factors, like media, the way that they're being spoken about, the images that you see of them are very derogatory, right? And you can see that with like a bunch of different racial groups, right? But then to your point, we do have to realize that in America, right? Because the Holocaust is a very, very, powerful topic and a powerful point in history that we have to respect and treat with care.
Absolutely.
If you're going to speak about that at all, you really want to know what you're talking about and watch it because
be informed.
Exactly, because I think that history is so brutal and it's I don't even like to use the word sensitive, but like it is a tender spot for Jewish folks, and it should be
always,
forever.
We should never forget.
And I think that we other racial minorities should have a special understanding about that and to be able to relate and align with that even more. On the other side of that, though, right, in America, we do have to realize that, if you are Jewish and you happen to be white as well, that you still, operate in a certain level of privilege that other folks might not. Now, that doesn't mean people should be allowed to talk about Jewish folks and your religion, but also you also got to recognize that when you're walking here in America, if you're walking with white skin, no matter what you identify as, the perception of your white skin changes your dynamic, changes how you experience life. And not everyone has that privilege. You know what I'm saying? You could, I could be a black Christian, you could be a white Jew, and our experiences could be totally different in America, right? And I think that's what we got to realize as well. And I also think that when we think about how Whoopi was, chastised and punished, we got to compare that to other people who are, talking about, racialized things in a, misinformed or a negative way, right? And that sort of takes me to what's going on with Joe Rogan, right? So for those of you who don't know, Spotify has taken down 113 of Joe Rogan's episodes on his podcast because there was a montage that went viral of him using the N-word all
the hard
time.
R.
The hard R. N-I-double-J-R. You understand what I'm talking about? Shout out to Tigger. And it's so interesting. But before I say anything about it, T, do you have any more context that you want to give people?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like you said, that there already had been a campaign going on against Joe Rogan because of his COVID misinformation and him bringing on guests and saying definitely problematic and misinformative things. And then adding on top of that, that's when we found out that there were racial and racist remarks on his show. Just like you said, there was that compilation of him saying the hard R. Right. And he says that he released an apology and said that, it was taken out of context, but there is no context in which a white man should be using the hard R. Right. A white person, a non-black person should be using that word. And then there was another moment that was shared where he discussed going to a black theater and that he wanted to go see Planet of the Apes, and the taxi driver or the Uber driver took him to a location where he wasn't familiar with, and he said he stepped out the car and he realized that he was in the Planet of the Apes. And it's like, there's no context needed for that. Like, that's racist. And I think that Spotify only removing 100-something episodes, and then them coming out and saying that, we'll match Joe Rogan's salary, so we're paying him $100 million. We will invest $100 million into licensing and developing and marketing of music and audio content for historical marginalized groups. I think that is such a whitewashing of things, right? Like, I think it's such a I think it's a cop-out. It's like how the NFL says, it's like, we'll donate $100 million to historically marginalized groups. We never know where that money goes, right? It's like, does that mean you're just gonna buy more of Lil Baby music? Like, I don't understand. What does that mean? What does that look like? Like, how is that helping the community, and how is that like readdressing some of the harm that was caused by the person that you are giving a platform to?
Right.
So those are my initial thoughts. What about you?
Well, no, I think that, what you said about Spotify is really spot on, because when you think about Joe Rogan, I don't think he can actually really be canceled because no matter what, he already has a platform. Yeah. He's already very famous. Absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of racist and anti-black people who are going to follow him, even if he like goes out and stands in the middle of the street and starts saying the stuff he was saying, right? But as a company, as an organization, you have a responsibility to say, we don't tolerate this on any level. A white man being a verbally racial terrorist is not acceptable, and we're going to show you that when you do this type of thing, especially on our platform, that it won't be tolerated, and there are significant punishments, right? Because I think one of the Spotify execs said, we don't think silencing Joe Rogan is the answer. You don't have to silence someone, but you can disassociate yourself from someone. And because what happens is that a lot of people who were rocking with Spotify, whether they were subscribers or artists and creators who were signed onto the platform, they're exiting the platform because it's like you are the head of the snake, and you are what you're saying is that, hey, someone can use the N-word who is not black, and it can bother millions of people, and that's okay. We'll remove the episodes, right? But like, the Planet of the Apes thing, like, how do you?
Yeah, you can't justify that. And even on, like, a few seconds after saying it, he was like, yeah, that was kind of racist. But in his apology, he's like, no, that's not racist. And I think that we've talked about this before. I think people get a little too invested in what is racist and what is not.
Right.
And it's like, no, like we need to show that like this is still a problem and you shouldn't be saying these things. And I think what you're pointing out is that there's a double standard, right? Like that with Whoopi Goldberg, she will get a 2-week suspension because she did not really understand, that she was uninformed on something. But she didn't go out of her way to say anything harmful or hurtful or make a joke, a racially insensitive joke. But Joe Rogan did, right? And it's like, there is no repercussions really for him. Spotify is going to rock with him because Spotify makes money off of him. Joe Rogan is the #1 podcast in the world. He brings in a bunch of money for Spotify, because I found out that Spotify puts a $1 million, like to run an ad on Joe Rogan's podcast is $1 million. So it's like the money that they put into him, they're just trying to get back.
Right.
So that shows me that they're not looking to cancel Joe Rogan because they would lose money. And I just wish Spotify would come out and say, like, we doing what's best for our pockets. Like, if enough people leave Spotify and enough people start rocking with us, then we'll let them go. But they're only going to do that if that happens. And it's like, I would have rather them just kind of come out and say that.
Exactly. And, you know, when you were talking, what you made me realize, too, is that imagine if Whoopi Goldberg had 113 instances of her saying an offensive word. She wouldn't get past 3.
No.
She wouldn't
she
get
didn't
past
get
3.
past 1.
Right. That's what I'm... So it's like... So my thing too is what also makes Spotify look bad is that someone had to make a montage. A montage had to go viral before you move 113 episodes. So for those of you who might not be familiar with how we've talked about this before, me and Tristan talk about trends and patterns, right? You do something once, you know, like Whoopi's never gonna say nothing about Jewish people again ever. I guarantee you that. But 113 times, the first time, okay, I was misinformed. Second time, all right, I just, you know, third time we all looking at you strange. But then 110 more times, 110 more times. But like as a white man in America, that's about as many tries as you get.
Yeah.
And you're still not necessarily being punished that much.
Nah.
So I think
You
this
just gotta
is,
apologize.
yeah, it's like you get 113 tries if you're a white man in America. And I think we're seeing this in real life.
Yeah.
And like I said before, Spotify, yes, you're losing. Yes, you might be losing money if you disassociate in the short run. But imagine the repercussions of not disassociating from Joe Rogan in the long run. And you know, this is not the first time we've heard about, you know, issues with like content creators in Spotify. And so it's very unfortunate that it's going down like this. But yeah, I'm just like 113 times. And it's not, and like I said before, it's not like, you know, they had taken all 50 episodes and then added because they were like, oh, he was saying the N-word. It's like, no, a montage had to go viral before they even touched
Addressed it. Otherwise, like, it was okay. And then they just let it ride. And I don't want y'all to get it misconstrued. Do I think that Joe Rogan is a white supremacist, or do I think that he's a bad person? Not particularly. Right. But I do think that he uses his platform and he allows people that do believe in white supremacy on his platform, and he doesn't check them. So while they're promoting these white supremacist beliefs, so there's an example of, I think his name is Charles Johnson, and he made a claim that black people have this inherent violent gene. And Joe Rogan's sister like, oh, is that right? Oh, I have to look into that, right? And it's like, that I think is problematic. And I think that more than anything, Joe Rogan is very similar to a lot of white men in society, right? That they can be racially insensitive and that they can afford to be. And I think him being that similar to them in that sense, like that's why he is so popular. He can make these jokes that they say is just jokes. They can be uninformed and just kind of lackadaisical about these things. And I think that that's why people, white men specifically, and that's what makes Joe Rogan so popular. I think that's why he's so popular. And I think that deplatforming, I don't know if Joe Rogan can actually be deplatformed, but I do think that he needs to be held to that standard. He needs to be punished in some sense of the word, whether that be by Spotify. And that's kind of what we're talking about, because it's like he's built a presence so much because he was a UFC color commentator, because he was
Fear Factor host.
Yeah, Fear Factor host. So it's like he will be his own brand, but it's like until he knows that he can't do these things, he'll continue to do these things.
Right.
And there's no real repercussion other than saying like, oh gosh, golly, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
And we're not playing by the same game.
Oh, not at all. And so it's unfortunate, but like, I don't know, it's very much expected. You know what I'm saying? I expect Spotify to be this mediocre, just like I expect Joe, like, maybe what they might do is try to have some type of social justice warrior come on the show and have the conversation and check Joe. But like, once again, when we talk about even a sincere apology, it's like Joe Rogan needs to realize that it's like you said, it's not about being racist or not racist. It's about, I am a white man. Racism is something I benefit from and something in this particular case that I actively participated in. And this is a lifelong journey for me to learn more and to do better, right? And if he would have talked about all the ways in which that word is hurtful, whether you know, you're a white person and you use it or a non-black person and you use it, like how you shouldn't want to say the fucking word, and like how you have to address your own need for power and control if you want to say the word so bad, even though you're not black, right? So like if he would have given that type of thing, maybe it would have come off as more sincere. But the apology he gave was very typical of a mediocre white man, and so it's unfortunate, but also unfortunately it's very much expected. And what we also know is that, you know, a mediocre white man gets all these different chances, but as the NFL will show you, you know, not black people don't necessarily get those chances on the other end. So for those of you who don't know, the NFL is being sued by Brian Flores, Miami Dolphins coach. Yes,
ex-Miami Dolphins coach.
Yes, ex-Miami Dolphins coach. T, give us the scoop on that.
Yeah, so ex-Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores has filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL and 3 teams. So the Giants, the Broncos, and the Dolphins. And he's accusing them of racial discrimination. And a quote from the lawsuit, Flores says that the NFL lives in the past, and that the NFL remains rife with racism, particularly when it comes to hiring and the retention of black head coaches, coordinators, and general managers. So there is one, actually soon to be 2, because I think Lovie Smith just got hired by the Texans, who was not even on their radar before this Brian Flores stuff came out, right? So, but that's 2 out of 32 NFL head coaches. And there's another one that just got hired. I think his name is like Mike McDaniels. He's from San Francisco, the 49ers, and he just got hired with the Dolphins. And they've been talking about how this guy's a black man. I really need y'all to see a picture of this guy. He's white. Like, his dad is biracial. So his dad is black. His mom is some type of biracialness, but she's not black. So he's a fourth of a black man. Like, he visibly, like we were talking about race, like he's visibly not black. He doesn't even identify as black. He identifies as multiracial. So it's the NFL is selling us on this diversity kick, right? And I think that that's truly the problem. And Flores also goes on to say that the NFL is racially segregated and it's managed much like a plantation. We've heard this from Colin Kaepernick. And that these 32 owners, who none of them are black, are profiting off of the labor of its players, which is 70% black. And we've talked about this time and time again, that there is this effort, like in so many different ways, like they are profiting off of these black bodies, right? And they're not getting a necessary cut on which like the players get paid, a few millions of dollars, but that's not as much money as the NFL is making off of them.
For sure.
So, but I think this all comes down to the Rooney Rule. And I think if y'all haven't heard of the Rooney Rule is a policy put in place to help promote diversity within the NFL. They're hoping to encourage teams to hire a black coach, a black coordinator, a black front office person, whether it be general manager, something. They're trying to promote diversity, and teams get some type of benefit if they do end up hiring this black coach, right? And it makes it that these teams have to interview them, but they don't have to hire them. And in turn, this is kind of where I think the problem lies. It's they're looking for diversity in the process, but not the diversity in the outcome. And I think that
Say that again. Say that again.
They're looking for diversity in the process, not diversity in the outcome, right? Now, if they said that a team has to hire a black coach, that's completely different than saying you have to interview a black coach.
Right.
And Brian Flores, so in his lawsuit, he talks about how he went into an interview for the Giants, or he was going into an interview for the Giants, and that Bill Belichick texted him even before the interview, was like, hey, I heard you got the job. You're the man for the job. They really love you, this, that, and the third. And he texted the wrong Brian. He meant to text Brian DeBole or something. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's like, oh, my bad. Like, I messed up. And he hadn't even gone in, because he was like, Coach, you, like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I haven't even gone in yet. Like,
wow.
And then he was like, wait, do you know, like, which Brian are you talking to? And then I think Bill Belichick was like, oh, damn, I done fucked up, right?
Right.
So it shows you how this rule, in essence, like, it's supposed to incorporate diversity and it's supposed to give people a chance, but it just becomes like a formality. And I was thinking about this because I talked to my students about this, but they're athletes, so they really cared about this. I talked to my girlfriend about this, who's in higher education.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out how to make it connect for people, and I realized that the conversation really has to come down to a case for affirmative action, right? I think that we have to understand that there are limitations to diversity as like our thing rather than equity.
Right.
And I think that when we're looking at diversity, it's just hoping that we can bring some people in to spice up this white flavor that we have. We're going to try to bring in a few black people here and there, a few Asian people here and there, a few women here and there, but we want to keep the thing what it always was.
Right.
But equity, we're looking to rectify injustices. And I think that that's where we need to move this conversation, because it's not just the NFL. We see this in all job fields. And I think that that's why people really should care about this, because yeah, it's the NFL, and the NFL is talking about, oh, let's end racism and putting it on the decals and putting it on the field. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what are you doing in reality to change these things, other than putting on a black halftime show where you got Kendrick Lamar and Dr. Dre and making it real niggerish, right? Like, yeah. But like, what are you doing in reality to make these problems go away? And they're not doing anything. Exactly. So I know that was a lot, but I guess I just want to hear your first thoughts.
Well, the people needed that context, because I think it's always bigger than the NFL. Mm-hmm. And we got to think about these organizations that have real world consequences for all of society, because everyone's tuning into the NFL, right? Yeah. And you made me think about something called inclusive segregation. Now, for those of you who don't know, inclusive segregation is this idea of you hiring someone to make it look like you care about diversity, you care about equity and whatnot. But when you hire one person of color, for example, that means I don't really have to pay attention to people of color anymore, because you can't call me racist because I've hired that one person of color. It can work through any type of identity. You think I'm anti-Semitic? Let me hire one Jewish person, and now I don't have to pay attention to anything else, any other atrocities or problems that Jewish people might face in my company. Same thing with women, this, that, and the third. So when we look at the NFL, that's what it sounds like. But they can't even get to that point. That's the wild part. They can't even get to the part where they hire to save face. They can't even make the symbolic action of fake symbolic action of hiring a black coach, which is wild, but then also expected. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that like really stuck out to me. And that story about Bill Belichick, bro, that's wild. That's crazy.
And it's like he got caught in 4K, and they included that into the lawsuit. But it's like, without that, then he would have just went through a fake interview. And that's why he also added the Broncos to it too, because it's like they brought him in for an interview. They showed up an hour and a half late, drunk, hungover, like a mess. And he could tell that they didn't take it serious. And imagine if you were applying for a job at Spotify, right? Or you were applying for a job, if you were trying to be a professor and you were applying to a job at Cornell,
right? Or
you were trying to apply to a job, where do y'all work? Anywhere, right? Like Deloitte, a great financial institute, but they just brought you in just to say, like, checked off the box. Yeah, like, oh yeah, we interviewed a black man. They don't care nothing about what you say. You never had a shot. You wasted your time. You traveled here and you were literally a number. And I think that that's where we have to be able to change, like, this process, right? Like, Because if we're only caring about the process and not the outcome, because the Rooney Rule, again, it has good intentions. If you would think, okay, if we can get somebody in a room and they're a great candidate and they're black and they body this, then cool, they'll hire them. But we've seen time and time again that does not change. They'll just like somebody better. And it's like, I'm sure that they actually just like that person better, but it's because that person looks like them. They can envision themselves in them. They can see a future for that person as compared to Brian Flores, where they feel like culturally maybe he doesn't like relate to them as much. Or maybe he in his lawsuit, he talks about how he's painted as like an angry black man because they don't understand him, right?
Right.
So I think there are so many things, and it's like if we are not focused on equity and equity through affirmative action, then I think that it doesn't really work. And I think that most people don't know what affirmative action is. And I just want to break it down. So it says affirmative action is an increase in access to opportunities. It seeks to address past racial discrimination or any discrimination if we're using affirmative action just across the board, and giving special consideration to marginalized groups. They don't even have quota systems anymore, but the quota system was in turn just knowing that, like, okay, back in the day, we didn't let any black people in. So what we're going to do is, knowing that that's a sentiment that still kind of exists, that we don't know if these people really belong here, let's set up 20 spots. We're going to make sure that there's at least 20 black people at our organization. Or we're going to make sure that out of 32 coaches, we're going to make sure that there are at least 10 black coaches. Because that still doesn't even represent the population of the players, but still it's a great start. And I think that people, when they see affirmative action, they think like, okay, well, this is discriminated against people that would otherwise be like more, I don't know, more qualified. Yeah. And it's like, that's always the argument. But I think if there was a quota system in place, then you would make sure that people are qualified. You would, the same way that you buy into somebody that's young, whether it be they 17 and you're building them up for these opportunities like these young white kids are, where they can go into these internships and they don't have to work in college. Like, I don't know if you had to work in college, but I had to work 25 hours, like on top of going to school, on top of trying to do some activism stuff and leading an organization. But it's like, I had to be phenomenal. Like, we have to be the best. And it's like looking at the NFL, like Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches ever. Like, he's won a Super Bowl. He's never had a losing record. And you have to be that excellent to be considered when you're black. But when you're white, you can be Joe Schmo that knew Joe Schmo, and they was like, oh yeah, we really like you. We're going to build you up. So by the time you're 32, then you're ready for this opportunity. Right. And I think that that's when there's a quota system, you would make sure that you're developing talent. You would make sure that these black kids at these inner city schools have the resources. So when they do apply to a Harvard, or they do apply to a UCLA, or they do apply to Cal State, LA, that they are ready to be on campus and that they won't struggle, because those spots are going to be those spots no matter what. So that you would think that would be in our best interest, but we don't take that approach. We'll just say like, oh, there's a quota system. We honestly hope they fail so we don't have to do this again. And I think that there's no faith in that process working. They don't want it to work. They want it to be how it is, to say, we think that black people are a little dumber, or they have a little extra this violent gene, right? And I think that it becomes like a self-confirming bias that people buy into. And I think that is at the heart why equity initiatives never really take off.
Right, absolutely. And to your point, I think about the NBA and like, for those of you who don't know, Chauncey Billups, former NBA champion, he used to play for the Detroit Pistons. He is now the coach of the Trailblazers, and like, they're a horrible team in the West, right? But that's what black people get. It's like, you have to perform miracles. You have to perform miracles in sports if you're like a black coach, and this, that, and the third, right? And so I totally get what you're saying in terms of what the NFL is doing. And I think there's an assumption with affirmative action that there aren't qualified minoritized people everywhere.
Exactly.
Right? If a black person, if a woman, if someone LGBTQIA plus gets into somewhere, there are a lot of qualified people of all different types of identities. It's not just straight white hetero cis white men. You know what I'm saying? And look, let's be real. when it comes to getting hired for a job, a lot of it is not necessarily what you know, it's who you know, it's how you interact with the people who are already in power. But here's the thing. There are some shucking and jiving and to be honest, there's some shucking and jiving black folks who would actually get along with these white NFL owners who are hiring them. So even with that being said, it's very interesting that all these folks who are getting all these opportunities are all white because they all fit company culture. You know what I'm saying? Because even company culture doesn't always have to look one way in terms of actions and how you interact with people.
That's true.
But if you have an idea of what you want the person who mixes well with you to look like, that's where it becomes a thing. We you know, Mike and Tommy are both play golf with us on the weekends. They both talk about stocks. You know what I'm saying? They both like talking about, you know, finances and resources and this, that, and the third. But Tommy is white. Tommy, we don't have to watch what we say, like what we say around. You know what I'm saying? Tommy, we can sort of be free and do whatever we want because we don't have to worry about, you know, any minority thing, you know? So I think that's how the company culture ends up happening.
Absolutely.
Even with like billionaires and like thinking about NFL ownership, right? The idea that 31 other old white NFL owners have to say, we want you to be in this club. You know what I'm saying? Do you think they're going to hire the young black person who became a billionaire recently to be a part of that club? Why? Why not? Because at the end of the day, not only do you want someone to be able to socialize with you and understand you on a social level, you want them to look like you because there's power in you know, being white in that sense and connecting through your whiteness.
Absolutely.
And that's the unfortunate part in reality of it all. So I think the NFL has to set some more boundaries for itself. It needs to take a hard look in the mirror at itself. And speaking of which, some people are, you know, sort of doing that on the extreme end. Famous gospel singer, actress Kiara Sheard was interviewed recently, and she was talking about how she would not let her female friends stay with her, or her women friends stay with her if they came into town to visit, because she, you know, has a husband. She makes them stay at a hotel. And, you know, just to lighten up the mood a little bit, because it's been a very deep show. What do you think about that, T?
I think that there's not enough trust in the relationship, whether that be with the man involved or with the women friends involved. Because otherwise, like, I don't think that make a lot of sense, especially if you have enough rooms, right? Like, I think that you can't truly be that close of friends if you can't trust them around the person that you love the most, right? I thought it was ridiculous because that's not a friendship that I would want to have. If I feel like I can't trust the homies around my girl, like if I gotta go take out the trash, like, and I can't leave y'all around her, like, I think that's where it becomes a problem. Exactly.
And I totally agree. Like, not only is it something wrong with the friends, like, you also don't have a real partner for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be loyalty on both sides. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a very, like, you know, almost damn near professional relationship with any of my friends, like partners and stuff like that, just because it's like, I want them to know, like, I would never, you know what I'm saying? And like, anyone that I've ever dated has never been an issue with any of my homies because I got real friends, you know what I'm saying? And this is less about Kiara Sheard, because I know she's done some interviews trying to, you know, rectify what she said and give more context. But, you know, there are so many people out there who do that type of foul stuff, though, right? There was a thread I was reading about all the horrible things that, like, women have done to their friends, to their other women friends. And, you know, and we won't just place it on women. Like, men do it too. We dirty Mac, which means you talk crazy about another man to a woman so that she doesn't engage with the man. And it's sad that we live in a world where people tolerate those types of relationships and feel like they have to go out of their way to control the situation so that those things don't happen. T, I guess a question I have for you before we transition is, why do you think that people tolerate these types of relationships? Why would you stay in a situation with somebody or in a friendship or in a partnership with someone that you couldn't trust in the first place?
I guess because you don't know if you can do better. I think that being in a shit relationship before,
right,
I think that you get so comfortable and you don't know what else is out there, and you think that like you can make that work, even though like it's so limiting, right? And I think that whether that be with a friendship or a relationship, like you build experiences with these people and you love these people, and if you need to change that relationship, that means you have to let go of that person in some type of capacity. And I think sometimes we're just not brave enough to do that. Like you have to be courageous enough to do that and to choose yourself in that. And if a relationship is that possessive, then it is bound to be doomed. Like if one homie can come in and really take that relationship and really throw the trust out the window, then I think that there was not enough foundation there.
Right.
What about you?
I think there are an infinite amount of people on planet Earth. I know we're at 7 billion, I believe, but there's an infinite amount of people in the world to me. So I'm not going through your phone. You know what I'm saying? I'm leaving you in the crib with the homie if I need to go do something. Like I have no other choice but to trust you.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I can do that because I know if you betray my trust, I'm out. Yeah. And it's simple.
Cut it.
It's simple. Bop, bop, cop, bop. So it's like, it's super easy when you realize, hey, if this person betrays me, I'm going to just go out and find someone who won't, because you have to know you deserve someone who won't. And that there actually is someone out there who won't. Relationships do not have to be toxic. Relationships can be super, super easy and fun. Now, I don't know everything about your relationship, but from what I see on the outside looking in, it seems peaceful. It looks easy,
phenomenal,
right? And of course, you might have your disagreements. You go through trials and tribulations, but I never get the sense, and me and T, we talk about everything under the sun. I never get the sense that like you are dragging your feet, or you're being forced, or you're being weighed down by your relationship. It's always like, yo, this is like my best friend. This is easy. This is what it's supposed to feel like.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I've been in both types of relationships where it's like, with my best friend it's easy, or I'm with a great, phenomenal person, but maybe we're not as compatible. But like, relationships don't have to be toxic, right? I know we hear a lot of things about them being toxic, but they don't have to be that way. So that's one of the things I wanted to leave on. Is there?
No, I think you summed it up. I just want to say shout out to my baby.
Hey, look, and shout out to all the people who are celebrating Valentine's Day. I think by the time we get back from we record again, Valentine's Day will have passed. So shout out to all the people doing Valentine's Day, and to all the people who are doing Galentine's Day, or the Valentine's Day. You know what I'm saying? Love your friends, because they are great people too. And sometimes some of our biggest loves can come from that. So one of our last things that we got to do is our spotlight, and that's where we shine a light on someone that's doing something positive in the community. This week, we are going to be talking about Cardi B, and give us more context about what Cardi B is doing in the community.
Yeah, we just want to give a quick shout out to Cardi B. She's done a lot for the community, whether that be paying the GoFundMe for the victims of that Bronx fire, whether that be helping bring that case to life where that young black woman was killed by that white man on a social the dating app, and they didn't want to investigate that, and she was instrumental into them opening that case. She's found just random GoFundMes and promoted it, and whenever it doesn't hit the cap, she's paid it off. And we've had that conversation about like Kendall Jenner and how it was somebody she knew, and she just kind of, I don't even know if she lobbed it to the TL, but she didn't pay it, right? And knowing that like, oh, these are billionaires, right? Cardi B uses her platform to make a change, and I think that I just want to give her a big shout out for that, because so many celebrities don't. And I think that that's where we want to use our spotlight, because it's like we want to shine a light on people doing great things, and Cardi B silently but surely have been doing them. And I think that that's what people with money, that's exactly what they should be doing.
Right. Absolutely. Look, that's it. That's it for us. Shout out to you, Cardi. Keep doing your thing, because, if more people did what you did and what you continue to do, the world would be a better place. So, I mean, that's all we can do. We got to give it up. T, great show, man.
Great show.
It was deep, but we lightened it up a little bit at the end. Happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Year. Decade, century. It's every day, all the time. No stopping us, baby.
So like we like to say, keep the coffee black. All right, y'all. Peace, and we will catch y'all soon.
Peace.